So Lorenzo, what are you thinking about
Yeah,
here?
I think that I was thinking about this before today, and but this issue is maybe what leads some other games. We discussed this game, Claudio, yesterday, I think, or today, to have mechanics that tell you what position you are in before the roll and what effect you can get on the roll, and that's very
Exactly
fine.
what game you're talking about.
Yeah, you know what game I'm talking about, but I think that the problem here is just that we have some sort of bias that makes us fill the blanks. So you get it's just about saying that you don't have to add anything that isn't there. So, for example, if you tell me that about the gorilla, now that I played some, and you tell me I've wrestled the gorilla, the roll doesn't tell me that. If I win the roll, I'm not wrestling a gorilla that can lift 900 kilograms over
Right,
his head,
right. You
but I'm
simply right.
getting out of it alive with what I want. So the fun is going to be figuring out why I tried to wrestle a gorilla and I
Right.
didn't lose. So
Right.
maybe
Yeah.
you
The
know
gorilla
it's
threw
going to
you
be
away
something
with
wild.
contempt, or something like that.
Yeah,
Right, right.
yeah, but
Yeah,
it's so
yeah.
I was picturing myself, trying to use water magic against the snake, and it's probably completely ridiculous. But say that you make it, it's going to be something like, uh, if I get the monologue, maybe a mishap effect of the spell makes something collapse, or
Anything.
something
Right, right,
will come up. I
right,
just need to see in very simple terms if the scene goes my way.
right,
I don't have to think in terms of I'm trying to use my strength to bend these bars, you know.
right. I mean,
And
you could.
if that's
Yeah,
kind of what is getting behind your head and limiting you. And
right,
another thing that I think I was doing, but it's something that I've seen myself do a lot in this type of game where you write down your traits, is that you try to there is no mandate to honor your traits. You
right,
can write something in your character sheet and never do it.
right.
And I'm constantly thinking, I have to do that. I put it on my sheet. I want to do it, but I have to do it.
Mhm,
So it kind of becomes problematic in
mhm.
a way because I feel like I need to honor that thing
Right.
that I put on my.
There's a certain sense to that. I mean, you do want to see more of the character. That's certainly the case.
Mhm.
Um, I was thinking. I mean, Manu, I think you showed like the biggest transition. It was in the very first session where you kind of were trying to figure out what do we know going into a role or not. And there was.
So Ron, you cut out a
Oh,
little bit
sorry.
there, so I
Okay.
can't follow quite what
Well,
you're
we
saying.
talked about this already in one of the discussions. It was when you were confronting like the people of Wambaroom, right? And you were
Oh, okay,
right.
got it.
And this was the point I talked about earlier, where somebody says, "Okay, I'm trying to do X, and it seems important to me because somebody's going to be narrating, right? Somebody, me or someone else, is going to be narrating the outcome of the role. They need data." And a lot of that data is about NPCs, and I'm the only person who can say things about the NPCs and the local environment and stuff like that. So I better provide a lot of data about everybody running in every direction and everybody saying different things. And so you said something like, I say this to the people, and I said, all right, well, let's fill in all the other contemporary activities. Now, this only happened once for you, Manu. So don't take this as like, and you sucked at the pool because you did this all the time, right? It's just
No, no, I got
this
it.
one time.
No, I can
And
tell you
right.
what was going on
Well, the
in
point
my
being
mind.
that I say
Yeah.
X in terms of what some other NPC says, you perceive this as a response to your statement as if you had rolled and failed,
Yeah.
right? And then continually play past a point of resolution. And I'm going, wait. We aren't saying You're responding as if you had been stopped in your action. We still have to roll on it. I'm just putting in as much data as possible about what everyone else is doing at the same time. So that way, whoever narrates will be able to close whatever piece of it they feel is the most, you know, compelling about how it turns out. So, so anyway,
I
I'm
mean,
sorry, but go ahead. Yeah.
what was going on in my mind at the time was that I was what I thought was okay. I'm going to say this. Forget what it was. And then depending upon it was I was appealing to some religious scripture,
Right,
right?
right.
Okay.
It's the oos,
Yeah.
right there, right there. You're right. Uh-huh.
And then and then I figured,
That's
okay,
right.
depending how they respond to that, then I may become more aggressive or something.
Mhm.
And then when you said like they reacted badly, I was like, oh, I guess. So in my mind, what I thought was, oh, I guess Ron is telling me there I had no chance to succeed at this at
Right,
all,
right.
right?
Mhm.
So
What I need
and
in
so
playing the
oh,
pool, I've
yeah,
decided,
yeah.
is a special token. And that special token
Mhm.
gets set out, and it means a roll is pending based on what you just said.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
That
but
right
it's
there,
not the
what
Okay,
you
only
yeah,
just
that would
said,
have helped.
game
that's
that's in
the
my
roll,
game.
and that's what's going to be the roll.
Not the only
And
game that
now we are
benefits
just
from this.
Yeah.
setting up the role. We
And
are
for the
discussing
rest
the
of it, we
details.
are just providing
Yeah,
data for who's ever
right.
going to narrate. And that's what I was
Mm.
bitching at you during play too, Lorenzo, right then, because I was so happy you said a thing with the water magic. I'm like, in retrospect, I'm like, I really wish that I could have just put out this token that fixed your water magic in place. You said it, you're
Okay.
doing it, we're done, no takebacks. You said that.
But I think
I'm
in
all
that
about this.
situation, I wanted to change it because I think I had pictured myself a situation that was different from what you described. So I was imagining a kind of a quiet scene,
Mm-hmm.
where I could get people's attention. And when you described that, in my mind, uh, I wanted to change it not because it was easier, the one that I got in a way. I didn't think of it because I kept thinking that I had two dice in water magic and one in wild and uncontrolled, and it's the opposite. So my character was sneaking back at me somehow,
Right. Just
and
so you know, it would have been a three
and
die
I
roll. You
couldn't,
had a whole bunch of water right there. I mean, you're in a
but I
frog.
couldn't
Right.
picture the scene anymore. I
Right.
mean, I had imagined something quiet. I wanted people's attention, and in the middle of the chaos, I saw the scene, and it didn't make sense for me anymore. So the detail he gave me, probably I was a bit too fast to say what I wanted to do, and I should have asked, "What's the scene like?"
Mhm.
That's probably was the failure in communication for my part. And but I was happy with the outcome because even if I failed my role, of course,
Mhm.
but it made more sense for my character.
Mhm.
It was it was something to draw attention to people, and in all the chaos
Right.
probably wouldn't have done it.
Right.
It was fine either way, but it wasn't a problem for me to change because I had a better view of the.
So
But I think it also works the way you say, probably better if I say I want to do something and we set that I'm doing that, and then we
right.
give more
Because I
texture
will
to.
say that nothing that I've said after that moment, the token moment in my mind,
Mhm.
nothing that I've said after that at any point in play made the roll harder.
No, no,
Right.
no, no. I
But
didn't. I
right, I
wasn't
know.
thinking in the.
But I
No, I
think
wasn't thinking in those terms. I was.
I'm not
It was
necessarily
just.
saying you were at that moment. What I am saying is that after the token goes out, it should be understood that everything else is the mechanics are fixed basically,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
The trouble is that there is data of what's going on,
yeah.
and
Because
you could be a little bit flexible about like what trait you're going to use and stuff. That's reasonable, right? To be flexible
you
about
know
that.
when you have an image in your mind, you know, the GM is describing something or a player is describing something, and you have an image, a scene in your mind, and the scene I had formed for myself probably wasn't what was going on at the moment. When I said I do that,
Mm-hmm.
I was picturing something completely different. Then people was rushing, and that changed the mood of the scene. It wasn't the challenge or anything like that. It was kind of the mood of the scene. So that was the reason
Sure,
for
but
me.
what I'm driving at is this notion of what, how am I going to put it? At the point of saying, all right, a role is pending,
Hmm.
to change up about it should be understood as very serious business, right? Because people are launching into it as a given, right?
Yeah.
And so therefore to change up on it is very much it's 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 disorienting for me anyway, and
Yeah.
tiring really. So so there was that effect anyway. Manu, I was going to say that after that moment when you kind of got your feet under you in dealing with the crowd, and we talked about it a little bit afterward, and you kind of got your feet under you, and then after that point, every single point of you know how you said actions and expected a role was smooth, right? From that point on, everything you did was like coherent with how I was understanding the dice to be used. And so the sense though of the the thing that you wrote about burning wheat about to Sam about intent in the pool, Lorenzo, earlier
Hmm.
yesterday was
Hmm.
kind of interesting because it was like the Lorenzo who was writing that wasn't exactly the same Lorenzo who was playing the pool with me.
I lost you a moment.
Sorry,
Sorry.
right.
Lorenzo that was writing that.
The Lorenzo who wrote that was not the
Hmm.
same Lorenzo who's been playing the pool with me, because the Lorenzo who's been playing the pool with me should be listening to that Lorenzo. So I kind of like my fingers went to the keyboard and I went, I'm just
No,
not
but
going to
I
reply.
noticed this
Right.
in
Because
play
everything,
because
yeah.
yeah, I think I there was a part of that post that I forgot to write more or less because I left it open for a while because then work came up
Right, right.
and I was sure I put it and I wanted to comment on how playing the pool right now was relevant to that because the truth is that I don't get to play much.
Right.
You know, I'm mostly in the GM seat. So I have this very clear vision of play from this side
Right.
of the screen. And I see people do things. I think I think it's kind of a rather common phenomenon in most people because the guy who is the GM is very often the GM.
Mm-hmm.
This imaginary rotation of people around the table, it's never really that much of a thing in my experience among all the groups. I mean, if I want to play, I have to know when some guy who is doing the GM is setting up a game and find the time to sneak in because I know if it's my table, we are going to talk and everybody's going to say, okay, this time this guy is in the end, and in the end, I do end up doing it.
Right.
So while I
Hold
have
on a
this
sec,
very
Farley.
clear idea of what I want in play, I know that sometimes when I'm being in the player chair, you have this weird thing that you start thinking about the GM. Like you are saying, I don't want to bother this guy too much. I don't want to do too much. I don't want to be I don't want to do all the stuff that I should be doing, that I want people to do when I'm in that spot. And it's something that takes a moment to defeat. I mean, I think tonight I was getting my stride
Right.
in
Right. Yeah.
how to use
Right.
this stuff
Mm-hmm.
very specifically.
Claudio, what did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Lorenzo, please don't get offended. Like, I don't mean it as an insult.
Oh no, here
But
it comes.
the
But
but however, I agree a lot with what you said. I'm going to say something a little bit more actually. I used to have, and I think what happened the last time was a little bit of this coming back to me. Um, Nowadays, I don't really feel that anymore. oh, I'm the GM, now I'm the player, I'm playing too much to GM. And it's not because I'm not playing GM mostly, because that still happens, just as usually a more um like let's say passionate player, convincing other people to play. Oftentimes, if there is some asymmetric role that requires a little bit more effort, that I'm going to be the one to do it or to facilitate the session. So this still happens, but that thing you described doesn't happen anymore to me. And I'll tell you why. And so I'm not going to say that this is you. I'm just going to say, like, maybe it's you, right? So that's why I said don't get offended. But back when I was playing a lot of Dungeon World, I'd say like about half of my campaigns were ran under like intuitive continuity. Like they were ran like with, oh yeah, like you guys are going around and I'm improvising something, trying to like make some fucking sense out of what you guys are
Right.
doing. But there's like I'm essentially killing the act of playing itself by doing this. But that's the only way that I can figure out how to move it forward.
Right.
And that is what I'm thinking of when I'm as a player have those thoughts that you described. I'm thinking
Absolutely.
of that type of GMing.
He's a
And now that I'm
GM.
playing,
He's up to something. That sneaky bastard
yeah,
is going to make
no,
his story
not exactly,
happen
but
right in front of
more
us. I
like
know it. Yeah.
what I wanted to say is, and I know the difference between that because then about half of the other sessions were good, right? But then when I'm being the player, and now that I'm playing a different way, like I'm playing more self consciously, like treating the characters as real people. It doesn't really matter if I'm GMing or I'm being a player.
Right.
It's the same. Yes, I have more tasks when I GM,
Right.
but I treat the NPCs the same that I treat the PCs when I'm playing
You
as a
have
player.
just walked through the
As
sorcerer
some
door.
person there.
That's the sorcerer door right there. That's the
Yeah, I know
sorcerer
I need to
door.
play Sorcerer.
No, that's
I
not
know
my
I need
point.
to
My
play.
point is that for a long time, that was the only game that provided that door for people to go
Yeah,
through. And they swore up and down that they loved Sorcerer, and the way they talked about it, I was just groaning, knowing that they were playing Vampire or Call of Cthulhu or something, and or Shadowrun or whatever. But when somebody said what you just said, because I could say it till I just turned black, right? Till I just turned, you know, some unearthly shade for lack of oxygen, right? I could just say it over and over and over again, and they wouldn't get it. They wouldn't get a word of what I was saying. They did.
yeah,
And so it was only until they came back and said, you know what? I didn't have to prep for like story when I played last time. I didn't have to. I just
yeah.
played my guys. Who has anyone? That's amazing, isn't it? And I was like, I've been telling you that for 2 years. And they were like, oh yeah, that's what you were talking about, right? So it's. So I definitely understand what you're saying. I think it's very important.